On the 5th of August 1943, a young woman of just 19 years old was led out into the execution chamber of Plötzensee Prison for her execution. In just 30 minutes before her, there were 7 women who were executed on the guillotine at the hands of a ruthless executioner who could take the head off a victim in a matter of seconds. The executioner of Plötzensee Prison was so skilled at his disturbing job that in less than 10 seconds from someone entering the execution chamber, their head could be taken off. But the last woman of the 8 who was executed was Liane Berkowitz, who was executed 2 days before her 20th birthday, and she was also a new mother who had given birth to a daughter whilst inside of prison. She was one of many women who belonged to the Red Orchestra, and the resistance group was smashed through the brutality of the Gestapo and the People's Court, who sentenced many people to death. Welcome to The Untold Past. Today we look at the execution of the guillotined 19-year-old mother, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Liane Berkowitz was born on the 7th of August 1923, and she was born inside of Berlin. Her father was a conductor, and her mother was a singing teacher, but before she was born her parents had left the Soviet Union, and they fled and settled in Germany. But following the death of her father, her mother remarried, and Liane then took her stepfather's name of Berkowitz, and he adopted Liane when she was just 7. Liane was fluent in Russian and German, and she was given a good education inside of a private school in Germany, and she met a number of friends, and together they all became dissenting to Hitler's regime and the Nazi Party. Liane Berkowitz then began to get involved in the pro-Soviet resistance movement, and she became engaged to Friedrich Kramer, who also was part of the group, and she began to distribute anti-Nazi stickers. One of these said, "Permanent exhibition, the Nazi paradise, war, hunger, lies and Gestapo, how much longer?" This protest was aimed to shame the Nazis' use of the Soviet Paradise exhibition, and they wanted to show the resistance was alive in Berlin and active, but of course this sort of action was very dangerous. Inside of Nazi Germany, to oppose Hitler and the Nazis could easily result in death. To begin with, when Hitler rose to power, many people were sent to concentration camps, such as Dachau, and those with political beliefs which were different were thrown inside of the German prison system. The Nazis wanted complete support and loyalty to Hitler, and the Red Orchestra got involved in further pro-Soviet actions, and they even had a communication line with the Red Army, and they also found out about the real course of the war through the broadcasts they received, as Nazi propaganda did not tell the real picture. But Liane Berkowitz, for her distribution of the stickers, was arrested, and she was charged on the 26th of September 1942. Her fiancé at the time was recuperating inside of a Wehrmacht medical facility, as he had sustained a serious injury that he suffered on the Eastern Front, fighting against the Red Army. But he was also later arrested, and was implicated in resistance activity. On the 18th of January 1943, in front of the People's Court, the pro-Nazi court, Liane Berkowitz, along with her fiancé, were accused of resistance activities, and they were also accused of high treason, and specifically for aiding the preparation of high treason and aiding the enemy. There were others who were linked to this, and let's remember that the crime Liane had been suspected of was in fact making stickers, which were supposed to question the mind of the German people in terms of their support for the Nazis. Liane Berkowitz was sentenced to death, and she was then imprisoned inside of Barnimstrasse Women's Prison. Whilst here on the 12th of April 1943, Liane gave birth to a daughter named Irina. The People's Court at some point approached Adolf Hitler with a shocking prospect of pardoning Liane Berkowitz because of her age, being 19 years old, and also the fact she had just given birth to a daughter. But Hitler himself dismissed any notion of clemency, and with this he confirmed personally the death sentence of the teenager, and this was even confirmed and countersigned on by Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, the most senior member of the German armed forces. Keitel may have got involved due to the fact that Berkowitz was condemned for what was aiding the enemy, as in the Soviet Red Army. She was then transferred to Plötzensee Prison, a ruthless and brutal Nazi prison, where thousands of people were executed during the years that Hitler was in power. On the 5th of August 1943, there was a mass execution of female prisoners that took place. Between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 p.m, there were 8 women in total, who had all been members of the Red Orchestra, who were executed. The men were executed at a different point in time, but the executioner who operated the device inside of Plötzensee Prison was a very busy man that night. One by one, the women were taken out of their prison cells, and they were taken out into the courtyard of Plötzensee Prison. Inside of this yard was a brick building, and inside of here was a guillotine and also a hanging beam. Hitler would later order the use of the hanging beam upon those who had plotted against him, and then these executions were even filmed so he could watch them back when he wanted to. The guillotine of Plötzensee Prison took the heads off thousands of people, and this was known as the Fallbeil, or the falling axe. This was a metal device which had a falling blade, similar to the French device, and the executioners who used this were known to use it efficiently, to the point where the head of someone could be taken off in just a matter of seconds from when they entered the chamber of death. Liane Berkowitz was the final woman who was executed in the block of 8 women. The executions had begun shortly after 7 p.m, and at 7:45 p.m, Liane was led into the chamber. She had been taken from her prison cell and walked across the courtyard, and she then entered the room of death. She entered the execution chamber, and her hands had been cuffed behind her back, and a prison guard inside the chamber confirmed her identity. He then passed her over to the executioner. The executioner pulled back a curtain that sheltered the guillotine from view, and it's likely that the blood from the previous women's executions was all over the floor. She was composed as she was led to the guillotine, and she was taken behind the curtain, and she had her top pulled down over her shoulders to allow the blade to fall successfully on her neck. The executioner then strapped her to the guillotine board, and he slid this in place, and then released the blade upon her neck. As soon as she entered the room, the executioner conducted his work quickly, and he took the head off Liane Berkowitz. Her body was then packed into a wooden coffin, which was found in a room next door, and her body was sent to a German anatomist who conducted experiments upon her remains. She was just 19 years old when she was executed, and she died 2 days before her 20th birthday. The execution of Liane Berkowitz was incredibly tragic for a number of different reasons. Firstly, she was a teenager when she was led into the execution chamber for voicing her discontent and protest for Hitler's regime. She was one of many young women who were condemned for their subversion of the German or Axis forces. Also, Liane was a young mother, and her daughter died on the 16th of October 1943, 2 months after her mother did. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.